Welcome back. We are doing our inaugural live stream, and I'm here with my mother brother. He's one bad mother brother. He's my uncle. He's my comrade. He's all the time doctor. Sometime something troublemaker.
There you go. Trying to
Yeah.
make good trouble, but sometimes it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, no shit. I don't know. I mean, it's we're as we'll talk about here in a minute. We are entering a sort of Wilsonian era. You don't want to wind up like what's his name? The Eugene Debs. They threw him in prison
In
for
jail?
opposing World War One. Yeah,
Well,
jail, prison.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It
I
happened.
mean,
It happened.
I know, right? As long as we don't speak out against, the ruling class, we should be fine. Or
Right.
dare to run for
Right. Or dare to
president.
criticize Israel, or dare to
Yeah,
criticize
yeah,
the
right,
Israel.
right.
Right.
The criminalization of yeah. So I mean, we've seen some crazy shit lately. It got pretty wild since the last time we talked, huh?
Well, I think so, and it's. I mean, we are obviously in. Well, our countries are in a shooting war. It's not we, because most Americans don't support this war. Most Brits don't support this war. Most French don't support this war. It is an illegal war of aggression. I'd like to talk about that in a few minutes. But there's a couple things I'd actually like to start out with. You know, when we remember when we first started this podcast, it was during COVID. We started talking about medical issues and
Right.
medical slash political because you can't separate the two, unfortunately, or for in
Yeah. Right.
reality. And
Yeah.
then we started talking about other issues that were really more political, foreign policy stuff like that. Things that we knew about, but I mean, I consider myself, I think, with an expert in intensive care medicine. I'm pretty good with it. I think I know a little bit about public health, infectious disease, but obviously I'm not a foreign policy guy, and I'm not a historian, although I've read a fair amount of history and continue to do so, sort of extracurricularly. But I think it matters that when in this situation that we take kind of a step look. There are others, and frankly, there are others that I think whose podcasts we ought to append to this uh, um,
Yeah.
podcast, who are really much, much better in terms of the details of foreign policy and military policy and all that stuff. But I think it's legit, even though those others have more experience and data, to sort of broadly look at the big picture, and I think ask the question, which I know you and I've talked about, and I've talked about with my friend and comrade and wife, as well as others. Are we on the
Mm-hmm.
cusp of World War III? And
Yeah.
I mean, the
Right.
issue is not to be alarmist or frighten people, but
Sure.
but frankly, this is alarming. This is frightening. If you,
It is.
I've read Barbara Tuchman's, I'm sure others have too, The Guns of August, that details in
Hmm.
great in intricate detail how Europe sort of sleepwalked its way into World War One.
Uh, mm-hmm.
And then our colleague and friend and comrade Boaventura de Sousa Santos just published an
Yeah.
article this morning, excuse me, in
Very
Z,
interesting. Yeah.
asking, "Are we on the cusp of World War III?" And he argues, and he says, "I hope I'm wrong, and I know people will be angry at me for saying this, but I think the answer is yes." And
Right.
and and this is, I mean, this brings up a host of issues. Number one, we live in a nuclear age, and if World War III actually comes, nuclear weapons will be used. If nuclear weapons will be used, we face extinction. Number two, even if nuclear weapons aren't used, given the climate emergency, which, by the way, is utterly being ignored, I think, uh,
Right.
certainly in this country, but I would say because of these wars, Ukraine, here, Congo, Sudan, it's being ignored by essentially everybody. I mean, we run the risk of an extinction event based upon that.
Yeah.
And so this is World War III coming? Possibly. But we've got a host of sort of existential, a host. We've got at least two existential threats above us.
Yeah.
And so the
Absolutely.
question is
Imminent.
imminent. So what do we do? How do you interpret this? And just as when October 7th happened, Norman Finkelstein, who is a historian, a man who I respect greatly, sort of had to look to history to try and sort out what he thought it meant, and he looked to Nat Turner's slave rebellion. I think in this
Right.
situation, although it's not perfect, I think we look to the Spanish Republic, 1933, 1930, 1936, and the politics of that situation to sort of make some sense of where we are now. And if that doesn't sort of ring true to people, it is a little bit more complex, perhaps, than Nat Turner in a certain way. I mean, Spain,
Sort of. Yeah.
1931, well, Spain 31, 33, after the king was basically fled the country, the republic was declared. 31 through roughly 33, there was a left-leaning coalition that tried to remake Spain. Then there was a reaction from 33 to about 35, 33, 35, where right-wing forces came to power. And there's some controversy whether they were really pro-fascist or just very conservative and pro-clerical. I mean, I don't mean to, again, I'm not doing justice to the whole argument, and I know you know
Yeah.
some of
Well.
it.
Yeah.
And then in 36, there was another election where the left just won. The Communist Party of Spain, the Socialist Workers' Party of Spain, the PUM Trotskyist and Catalonian leftists won.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly thereafter, there's the mutiny of the Spanish military, and the Spanish Civil War begins. Where would we have stood on that? We might have, thinking to look at this now, we might have said, well, before the Civil War starts, we might have said, well, I just don't like the Catalonian leftists. Or we might have said, I just don't like
The anarchists.
the anarchists. I mean, whatever. I mean, right? I mean, not evil, but
No.
it's not my cup of tea. Once the fighting starts, and it's fascism on the one side versus popular unity government, United Front on the other side. So two different things. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
United Front. I think we have to make a choice. I don't think it's possible. And Boa, in his article today, alludes to this. It's no longer possible to sort of sit in the sidelines and sort of analyze what's going on. Well, I like this, but I don't like that, and therefore, in the context of the present. Listen, I am and have considered myself a leftist, a socialist for as long as I've been a sentient human. So that's about 50 years. I'm 70.
Longer than I have.
Yes, much longer, because you're a youngster.
When I was knee high to a grasshopper.
There you go, and in diapers too. And I knew you then. And I mean, I'm not a clericalist. I don't believe in religious states. I mean, I don't really believe in religion. But at this moment in time, there is no question on which side I stand. And that is with the Iranian government, the Iranian people, and their allies. It's again, and it's not because, it's because one must make a decision on which side one stands. It is not the side of the UK, the EU, the United States, my government, sorry, or Israel for sure. It's just not. It can't be. Those guys are, to use the terminology of the Nicaraguan Revolution, enemies of humanity. We don't need to rehash everything that's been done, but before this present war, and it is a war, began, we had the Gaza genocide. Every political human rights organization in the world, including Israeli ones, say it's a genocide. It's a genocide, by definition. I mean, we had Israel bombing Syria and Lebanon and Gaza over and over and over. We had the United States back in January, I believe it was. Am I right? The 12-day war, negotiating with the Iranians about their nuclear program, which is, I mean, Iran is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They have said they will
unlike
not.
Israel.
They don't want, unlike Israel, who does have nuclear weapons. They don't want a bomb. They don't want a weapon. And in the middle of the negotiations, Israel and the United States attack Iran.
Right.
After 12 days, the Israelis need a ceasefire because they're getting pummeled. The Iranians stopped. Their decision, I mean, people have criticized it, but they did. And the Iranians began to negotiate with the United States again. until
Right.
during negotiations when the Omani intermediary said that the conditions that the U.S. wanted for the nuclear weapon, nuclear enrichment, not weaponry, they don't have nuclear weapons,
Right.
had been met. The U.S. and Israel attacked them again.
Anyway,
Again,
right.
another
Yeah.
sneak attack. And so the question, so there's several questions that come to mind, or issues that I think need to be addressed. And I should have said this at the beginning um, when I talked with my friend and wife and comrade this morning about that we were going to do this. She said, make sure you
Hmm.
comment on the lives of humans. I mean, and you and I have had this conversation before in brief,
It's a good
where
point.
we've talked about forgiveness. There, as long as we're alive, any mistakes we've made, we can seek forgiveness. Every human life, Israeli, children, men, women, even soldiers, has value. No question, Iranian, men, women, children, Palestinian. I mean, I just want to make sure this is the good guy, bad guy thing kind of works in this situation because I think, frankly, the United States and Israel are clearly on the bad side here. But individuals, even people you and I would disagree with vehemently, as long as they're alive, they can change. And I think that matters, and it needs to be said now at the opening of this. And I want to say it again when we're done. It
Yeah.
matters. And again, and it's not to be mushy anything, but it's to say, all we've got is all we have is one another. And when we're political enemies, I mean, we can figure things out if we're still alive. Anyway, I
Well, I
just want to
mean,
make sure.
speaking of earlier world wars or whatever, that's it's an interesting contrast to look at the approach of the Soviet forces as they drove towards Berlin, and that was a much more organized and approach to it than the Americans had, who were just kind of being destructive and looting and stuff. But the
Mhm.
line from the heads of the Soviet military was, we're liberating these people, and I think that that's informative. I mean, hopefully we don't get to another you know like catastrophic world war just like that, but it is, I mean, as much as it's comforting to think of people in terms of existential evil. Well, first off, not everybody's like that. Okay, yeah, I mean, just like Nazi Germany, Israel is like Nazified, and a lot of their population is fully psychotic. But
Well, there is. Let me
stopping
just
them
interrupt you.
is liberating them. You know what I mean?
Sorry,
It's
let me interrupt
they're
you for one.
prisoners. Go
Let
ahead.
me
Go ahead.
interrupt you for one. I'm sorry, because it's not just a matter of making the assertion that the last
Mhm.
poll that I saw
Yes.
showed that
Be
it
specific.
was the I think I can't remember the name of the poll, Israel Democratic poll. I can't quite remember.
Hmm.
87% of Israelis polled said ethnically cleanse Gaza, and 47% said kill everybody there.
Right.
So this is a big deal. I mean, those guys have been, I mean, literally, I think, brainwashed.
Right.
Nonetheless, and
Right.
forgive me if I didn't mean to interrupt
No.
your thought,
No. No. I'm really glad you said it.
but
You're
but
absolutely
it,
right.
but even I think
They're sane.
even that group
Hmm.
can be salvaged, can be saved, can become human again. And
Right.
on all sides of this, there are elements like that. There are elements like that. And so I want us, I mean, I want us to make that statement at the beginning. And
Yeah. Good point.
I think it does matter. Um, so where we sort of talked briefly about where we would fall were this 1933-36, and where I think, at least I think I fall
Right.
today. It makes me slightly uncomfortable. Um, Not from a political standpoint, but I mean, we
I know
have
exactly what you mean.
well, I mean, my father was on the USS Yorktown during World War II. My mother was a Coast Guardswoman. My son, our son, my wife's and I's son is a former Marine. I mean,
My cousin.
it's yes. I mean, it is a challenge, but politically, it's as clear as it can possibly be. And and so what's happened again before the start of this war? Gaza, the West Bank, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran, all attacked. Yet somehow
Right.
Israel is the victim. And now the US and
Yeah.
Israel are once again attacking Iran. And what were the first, and again, remember, this is not, this is in that sense, this is not World War I, where you've got artillery units that, with no GPS or nothing fancy.
Sure.
The first people attacked, the first people killed, 100, and I think it's now 140 children.
Right. It's 153 at the
Is
last
it now
count that I
153?
saw. Yeah.
So this is, again, it brings up the issue,
Yeah.
genocide versus war
Right. Yeah.
in
That
Ukraine.
what my uncle is talking about is the kind of in the opening salvo of the surprise attack by Israel and the U.S. On Iran. They bombed a school, a girls' school,
Girls'
and
schools.
just killed a bunch of children, and also a bunch of hospitals. So I mean, this shouldn't be a
Those have
surprising
been
MO.
bombed.
Please continue. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
not. It's not. I mean, again, just to sort of
Right.
to make the sort of discrimination. Ukraine, it's a war. The number of child casualties is, if I can't, I don't have the citation at the tip of my fingers, but it's something like 0.15 or 0.2% children killed in that war.
Right.
In Gaza, it's 38 to 40%. This is purposeful in Gaza.
Yes.
However one feels about Ukraine and Russia and everything leading up to it, that's a slightly separate issue. But it is a war where there are, most unfortunately, civilian casualties, and most unfortunately, some of them are kids. It's not so in Gaza, and it's not so, it appears, from the opening salvo in Iran. Yes, I neglected to mention,
Yeah.
which I'm glad you did, hospitals are being bombed as well. We remember what
Right.
happened to hospitals in Gaza when those were bombed, and when neonates were left in their incubators to die alone. So
Yeah.
this is inhuman. And I mean, the only way I can conceive of this, the only way this makes any sense, it doesn't make any sense, but the only way I can use the sense, wrap my head around this, is that the Israeli military and society views Iranians, just like they view Palestinians, as something less than human. And that's the only way they can
Absolutely.
behave. So since the opening salvos, Iran has taken a number of actions, some of which have been criticized. They've bombed Kuwait and Bahrain and the UAE and Qatar, but they haven't just bombed. What they have done is they've bombed American bases there. And before all this
Right.
started, the foreign ministry and Professor Mohammed Morandi, professor of comparative literature at University of Tehran,
Oh,
said
is he a complete guy? I didn't realize that.
I think he's a conflict. I think he's a conflict guy.
My mother is or was a complete
She was a
professor.
chairwoman
That's
of
why we
conflict.
kind of
You may even know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know, but this, they said, this is what will happen if you've got bases and those bases are used to attack us. Sorry. So either ask the Americans to leave, or if this actually happens, we're going to hit those bases. And they've hit those bases.
Right.
According to the military department, I don't know which department, the military spokesperson in Iran, the USS Abe Lincoln was hit by 4 missiles. The US has denied that. And there's 560 US troops already killed. I don't know. I have no way to verify that. But I think that, but again, not to get into those details, I think the thing that I want us to focus on, if we could, in the next 20 minutes, is what actually is this? I mean, yes, it could be a prelude to World War III. This is a disaster. But what actually is this? And so what I did this morning, this appears to me to be an illegal war of aggression, just like the Iraq War, actually, just like the Vietnam War, an illegal
Korean
war of aggression. So I went through and I said, well, the only way to make sense of that is if I sort of know what the UN Charter says, because that's what's supposed to guide all of it. So I went back and read the UN Charter from 26 June 1945 that was approved in San Francisco, California.
A little light reading.
A little light reading. Actually, it's quite good. But there's a couple of things I want to just mention about this, and this will get a little, hope not tendentious, but a little long. The preamble is, and this can be found in, I included this in the email I sent to you that we can append to this talk. The preamble is basically anti-war, pro-equality, and respect for law. They say in the preamble, we, the people of the UN, have determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. To reaffirm our faith in the equal rights of men and women and nations, large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, we bring this document forward. We bring the UN forward. And then as for the ends, and these are anti-aggressive ends, the ends of to ensure that the acceptance of the principles and institutions of methods that armed force shall not be used save in the common interest. So the opening words recognize the scourge of two major wars in the 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century, and the untold sorrow, the untold horror that those wars brought onto us. We need to do something differently. And then purposes and principles. Chapter 1, this is divided into multiple chapters. Article 1, that the purpose of the UN is to maintain international peace and security, take collective measures for prevention and removal of threats to peace, the suppression of acts of aggression, and in conformity with the principles of justice and international law, just settlements of international disputes or situations which might lead to the breach of the peace. Again, if there's a problem, we have to be able to solve it. That's Article 1.1. Article 2.4, this is quite important, all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against any state or in any other manner that's inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. Chapter 7, and I'm obviously jumping, talks about self-defense. Chapter 7, action with respect to threats to the peace, breaches of the peace, and acts of aggression. Self-defense, Article 51. Nothing in the Charter impairs the right of self-defense if an armed attack occurs against a member of the UN. Self-defense, not a war of aggression, self-defense. Measures taken by members in exercising the right of self-defense shall be immediately reported to the United Nations Security Council. And in fact, Iran has requested an emergency meeting of the Security Council. They're doing exactly this. Article 41, Article 41, I just talked about Article 51, I jumped backwards. That basically says that the UN, only the UN, can, in lieu of the use of force, impose sanctions. The reason I wanted to just touch on that, it may not seem pertinent to what we're talking about now precisely, but given the literally economic war being waged against Iran before this war started, and the economic war being waged against Cuba, it's important to mention that the United Nations Charter does talk about coercive measures short of war, including sanctions, but those can only be imposed legally by the UN, not unilaterally by member nations, which is what the United States has done in Cuba and Iran and so forth and so on. It's just an important point. There's other issues as well about self-governing territories, and the bottom line is that the UN picked up the mandated territories from the League of Nations, and they explicitly state that any decisions made have to be made in the interest of the inhabitants of those territories. Again, I'm not talking about Iran precisely, but we're talking now about Palestine. Chapter 15 is on the International Court of Justice, which the United States rejects, which Israel rejects. All member states are parties to the statutes of the International Court of Justice and will comply with their decisions. And if they don't, the United Nations Security Council has to bring them to account. And what also in chapter 16, miscellaneous, in the event of a conflict between obligations that members of the United Nations are mandated to follow under the Charter of the United Nations, or obligations are mandated to follow under some other treaty that's not part of the UN Charter wins out. That's also an important point. And in the context of that, there are people who have said, well, the UN, it's garbage. We don't care about the UN. Blah, blah, blah. But Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States, which is one hopes, the ultimate document in terms of our laws and what we're supposed to be doing, states that all treaties that are entered into and ratified, and we ratified this in 1945, it is a treaty that we ratified. All treaties that we enter into are laws of the land. So Trump and his minions are not simply breaking international law by attacking Iran. They're breaking US law by attacking. And what's disturbing, there are many things disturbing, right? Many things are disturbing. Where do I start with disturbing? Well, how about the fact that the Democratic Party and its leaders, Schumer and Jeffries, have done nothing, absolutely nothing,
guys.
to make
worse than nothing,
to make sure that the law of the land is followed. Now, it's fine. It's not fine. Of course, it's not fine. If what they want to do is say, really, what it is the rule of the jungle, law of the jungle, the strongest rule, and that's the end of it, guys. That's just fine. But does that mean if someone comes to my door and I don't like them, I just get to shoot them or something stupid like that? What is this? If you take this down as logical sequence of it, this gets really horrible, really fast. And so it is quite disturbing in that regard. And finally, at least from my standpoint, the United States, France, China, Britain, USSR, were the original 5 signatories, the Treaty of 1943, and then the UN Charter. And the question is, do those signatories have any special duties, not just rights, but duties, because they were the co-conveners of the UN? That's not the right term, but something like that. And it turns out, I looked this up too, that they do. Their key responsibilities are to maintain peace and security through collective, not unilateral action, to refrain from the use of force or threats of the use of force, to fulfill obligations to the UN, including paying for the UN, to promote human rights, and to support UN actions. Well, those key responsibilities have been utterly ignored by the United States for a good while. And in this situation, because we're talking about this situation, they're being utterly ignored. And then there's special responsibilities in addition to key responsibilities that the original signatories, it's actually 5 plus 46. 51st one was Poland, but it was 50 plus Poland, 51. But they were the big 5. Their special responsibilities of the original signers were to formalize the UN structure, make sure it gets ratified in each country, make sure that the primary security roles, the 5 permanent members, get assumed. Make sure that trustee responsibilities for self-governance are followed. This, of course, was not done. And uphold the 1942 declaration. The 1942 declaration was simply that there won't be a separate peace with the Axis, with the Nazis or the Japanese. So we are in a situation today where, although it's a little hard to get the information, certainly if you listen to CNN, MS Now, or whatever it's called, CBS, or any of the other sort of standard press, including the New York Times, Washington Post, it's hard to know what's going on. These are really propaganda rags. I'm just so sorry to say. Yeah. Howard Fast, whose novels I've read with great enjoyment, the story of Lola Gregg, I think it is. Opens with a guy who thought he could make sense of the entire world if he only read every morning the New York Times from front to back. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I said, I know that feeling. It doesn't work. But Iran is being hit hard. There's no question about it. And there are dead civilians. Israel is being hit hard, and there are dead civilians. There are a handful of people in Israel who I love, who I've known for years and who I love. Several of them, as I've said before, no longer speak to me because I do not completely support, in fact, at all support, what they've done in Gaza and what they're doing here. That's fine. I still love them. There are some newer people that I've come to know, and through their writing and talking to them, um, that are historians, and I worry greatly about them. There are people that I know in
Mm,
Iran, same thing, same thing. Human beings who, as long as they're alive, have the potential to change and figure out right from wrong. My worry is, obviously, that there won't be time for this, that we're going to be drawn into a bigger and bigger conflict. The British are now threatening to send something, an aircraft carrier. The French are sending an aircraft carrier. The
yeah.
Israelis appear to be being pummeled. I fear they will use a nuclear weapon. Once that's done, I think all bets are off.
I
The
mean,
only way this, the only way this is solved is by the United Nations. Where is Antonio Guterres? Where is he? He is lost in space.
yeah.
He is nowhere. He has
Yeah,
utterly
tell me,
failed.
tell me Boa's line on this, and I think we
Boa's
both agree.
Boa's line on this is there are five. I don't have his paper in front of me, but there are
Three
three or four
things
things
I
we can
think.
do.
Yeah, right.
One is to demand the resignation of Antonio Guterres because he has utterly failed. The second
Right.
is boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. The third is third and fourth. I no longer remember. I can't remember, but they'll be in the article we have. I think it may
Yeah,
be
yeah.
to
We'll attach it to this. Mhm.
we'll attach it, but to demonstrate for Iran, just as we demonstrated for Gaza. That's number three, and there's a fourth one that I can't remember right now.
Mhm.
But I think that's what we can do as individuals, as a collective. It's
Yeah. Here. I got it. I got it here. We might as well read it. Here it is. One. An international petition asking UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to resign immediately in view of the high probability of war and the UN's inability to prevent it or unwillingness. Um,
right.
Two, take to the streets in defense of Cuba and Iran, as we did in defense of Palestine.
Yes.
Three,
Yes.
organize protests in front of the U.S. and Israeli embassies. He's talking, and EU representatives. He's writing from Portugal,
Yes.
so hence the embassies and stuff. But we could do the Israeli embassy. Anyway, four, considering that the most repugnant, though not the weakest, link in the U.S., EU, Israel triad is Israel, boycott Israel through the BDS movement.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So I mean that we can do.
right.
And again, it's there's some. I mean, we could. I mean, as we sit here tonight talking about this, there are missiles flying. My understanding, again, not a military guy, no, my understanding is that the US has adequate munitions for a brief war. My understanding is that the United States has already asked Italy to go to Iran to say, shall we talk about negotiations? And Iran has told them to eat shit and die.
Interesting.
Forgive my vulgarity. They were bamboozled once. They're not going to be fooled a
Right.
second time.
Yeah.
Israel is being pummeled, and they will, in return, attempt to pummel um, Iran. What seems to be happening with the attack on children and hospitals is what we have by Israel is what we've seen in Gaza. So we can expect more of that.
Yeah.
I think what is the solution? I mean, there is a solution. It's a political solution.
Yeah.
We've talked about this over and over and over. It was the solution of the Palestine Communist Party in 1947, made up, or 40, I think 47, 46, made up of both Jewish Palestinians and Palestinian Arabs, which was a secular democratic state. There were people within the State Department of the United States who thought that was the best option. Zionism wouldn't hear of it. So the only solution, I think, is two people on one land, a democratic, secular state with equal rights for all. And there's going to be horrific truth and reconciliation committees that have to be had. And some kind of, and I hesitate to use the word because it has a bad connotation, but some kind of re-education. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how, and maybe it didn't happen at all. After World War II, how were Nazis, confirmed Nazis, who hated Jews, thought that they were just inferior, and Slavs inferior, how were they re-educated to make them see, so that they could see the error of their ways? I mean, you can say, well, you can't do it, just kill them all. No, I mean,
No.
that doesn't, we don't want to do that.
That's not. Yeah. That's not what the. Yeah, right.
No,
I
no,
mean,
it's not.
you know,
No, no.
if you're the U.S. and the Western powers, then you just hire them to suppress the communists. Um,
Well, yeah,
if you're,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
part of what
That,
got us here,
yeah, part of what's got us there. But
and
so again, the
yeah,
term re-education, it's left a bad taste in many people's mouth. I don't know a better
no,
word
no,
exactly, but something, something, not humiliating.
de-radicalization. I don't know. I mean, you know,
Something.
there's
But
it's yeah, no, I mean, I think there's two parts to it. One is you know, there's the whole line, no justice, no peace, or whatever.
mhm,
You can't have peace without justice. So I think part of it was after, you know, I really like the Soviet approach, actually. After they've liberated the camps and stuff, they hold fair trials in front of the victims, of the people that you know, as the jury. The former concentration camp inmates were the jury, and they let some people off, some, you know, kind guards and stuff like that. There's,
mhm,
you know,
mhm.
but so then there's the period of justice, and then afterwards there is, I mean, what looks like, you know, is often held up as, oh, this horrible, oppressive, authoritarian approach of the East German Republic. And that is, there's, like you said, it's re-education. You have to denazify. You can't just, they're not just going to settle down and stop being Nazis. But you know, for the vast majority of people, although of course there was a lot of people that were just kind of going along to get along. There's always that.
Right.
And there's some people that were that were partisans and happy to be liberated, but you know, so there is a way. In other words, my point is, you know, when we talk about the 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 day after, you know, even if we're at the day before, or maybe we're the day of, who knows,
I think we're in the
um,
day of right now. Yeah.
maybe the day of now, yeah. It's that, I think that is, I mean, you get justice, and then you have to, you know, ideologically re-educate people. And you know, that's the capitalist world will call it you know, thought policing or something, but the fact is they had liberated Germany that was full of Nazis.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
and that takes some undoing. I don't, did they do it perfectly? Probably not. And you know, it's impossible to do things, especially for the first time, perfectly. So you know, whatever. But
But,
you know, that's why this
but that's
whole mystery.
right. But that's how, I mean, but in some sense, in some
Right.
way, that's the vision, at least that I have, that of how we
Hmm.
make this work. Because I mean, you know, I mean, there's just so much to be said. I mean, about all this. I think
Yeah.
where, you know, I mean, for whatever, for all the faults that Iran has, it stood beside the Palestinian people and stands beside the
Right.
Palestinian people. That
Right.
matters to me. That matters. The Yemenis as well. That
Yeah.
matters. You know, I mean, the Hezbollah, which is not a country, it's just a political party, it has significant power in Lebanon, but I mean, that matters. And all this talk about who's a terrorist and these are, you know, terrorism is the utilization of force to get your way politically. Well, if that's the case, Israel is the biggest terrorist on earth, and the
By
United States of
far.
America,
Right.
my country, your country, is the biggest supporter of state terrorism on earth. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and Martin Luther King actually said that about 50 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, as did Malcolm X, and they were both right.
Yes.
So anyhow, we can. I'm unfortunately have to
Yeah,
be
yeah, we
going.
got to get you
Here's
out of here.
4
Thank you so
minutes.
much for hopping on with me and doing our little test run. It's you know, it seems like everything worked. We'll see. I don't know.
So are we?
But
So we have been live, and the
we've been
10
live
million
the whole
people who
time.
normally watch
Live
us
the
have
whole
been.
time. 10 million people. Hopefully, probably, maybe. Either way, it is
Either
recording, and
10 or 10 million,
so
one of the two.
a dozen of people.
Right.
No,
So,
no, it's good.
so Odysseus,
I'm glad.
can we
Hmm.
make sure that the podcast part of this with
Yes.
the music in the middle, in the front, the middle, and the end, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Greek Partisan, El Pueblo Unido, and Bella Ciao.
Okay.
Can we get that this is as fast as we can out? Because
Yes.
again, there's a time. This is all timely stuff. I mean, this,
Sure.
I know you're doing the yeoman work on it. It's not me. All I do is sit here and talk. But thanks, man, for doing it. But we need to get
No,
it out.
no. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I'll do is I'll throw those links that
Yes,
Boa's awesome article, the charter, and we had some whatever. We've got a
the
few things.
podcast
So
we
read the
talked
show
about.
notes.
Yeah, the
Mm.
podcast that we
Right.
have. These are. I mean, and just for people who are listening, I mean, you look at that list of podcasts we include, and you go, "Holy sweet Jesus! How did these guys? They call themselves leftists, but they're listening to Judge Napolitano." I mean, there are things where we would disagree with the good judge on, but you know
Yeah.
what? On the issues of justice, Palestine, this war, Israel, he is right on the money.
Yeah.
And so all those guys, they and the guests that he has on, and on the other podcasts as well. These are experts. They've got more fine detail. Jeff Sachs is on a bunch of them. I mean, Jeff Sachs is
Yeah.
just an interesting and amazingly thoughtful guy. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah,
Scott Ritter.
there's some
I mean,
good stuff. Yeah. You
yeah,
give it.
yeah,
I mean, I'd say just give it a listen because, frankly, I don't know. It's good for the mind well, and look, as Mao, I mean, these are people who approach things at least with a modicum of common sense. We might not agree about absolutely everything, just like I
yeah.
don't agree with. I'll stop myself there. I don't agree with a lot of, um, you know, there's many groups,
Yeah, yeah,
and some of them we can say that we, be perfectly candid about, and others we can't. But the fact of the matter is, your Tucker Carlsons, for example, on this sort of issue there may be a lot of things that we disagree with, but this is like it is it really is frankly an issue of common sense in some ways. Of course there's the rationale of capitalism, grind up the small people, feed the babies to the billionaires,
yeah.
but the common sense thing, normal human decency says that you don't bomb a hospital or a school full of children. It's just not, and it doesn't take it doesn't take a Marxist Leninist or whatever to see that and be horrified and to have it offend your humanity. And
Right.
and one thing that I'm reminded of is Mao. I'm butcher the quote, or I won't even quote it. I'll paraphrase, but Mao had a good line about this: is that communists should position themselves, or leftists, insert yourself here. You should position yourself as the side of common sense, because it is a rational, common sense thing to not want to slaughter civilians or to destroy the climate, or what I mean. Like, so it's like these sorts of things. We it's gonna be a wide. I hate the term of tense, whatever, but I mean, there's
United Front.
humanity on the
United
one
Front.
side and inhumanity on the other. I mean, I'm on the side of whoever's on the side of humanity,
Yeah.
at least for this. Maybe we can argue about it later, but once
We
we've
have to be
stopped World
alive
War
long
Three.
enough to argue about it. If we don't fix it, we won't
Yes,
do it.
yes, right.
Okay, I'm gonna jump off.
All right, I love you, man.
Thank you. What they say, take care, baby.
Of
Love you,
course, of
sweetheart.
course. Take care of yourself. Love you, Uncle. Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, I think you can. There you go. All right, guys. So that's that. We'll try and do more live streams like this or whatever in the future. It's kind of short notice. We just kind of wanted to test it out and jump on stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Whoever's listening to it later, and thank you for listening. Hang in there. It is crazy making this situation and kind of where we found ourselves. I think there's a lot of parallels to the last two world wars. Trump is very, very much like Woodrow Wilson, and then you've got this other, which reminds us of World War One and this world planet hurtling towards insanity. And monstrous inhumanity. And then you got your World War II portion, which is truly like, I'm reminded of how the Soviets had to kind of, I mean, you look at China, right? Like, and I think for a lot of us, China and Russia, we see them and we're like, do something, just step in. They're gonna come for you next. Don't be split off piecemeal. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, like for example, during World War II, the Soviets knew that they were not in a position yet to confront the confrontation, the Nazis, the confrontation that was like coming, that was right around the corner. And so they pulled back and tried to rapidly industrialize and build up capacity for that confrontation. And I think that you have to look at the actions of China, who has always been very supportive of Palestine. I mean, going right back to the beginning, with Mao. I mean, the beginning of the communist period. Very forcefully advocating for Palestinian humanity. And anyway, so you kind of like that decision with the approving this board of peace, or abstaining from the vote for this nonsense board of peace. By the way, alternate episode title, maybe full episode title, we'll see, is that the board of peace sure got bored of peace fast. So yeah, anyway, whatever. Parallels abound. But like our friend Boa says, it's not like all hope is lost. There is things to do, and we might as well do them. We got to do them. It's the right thing to do. And when you do them, we will be standing right there, shoulder to shoulder with you, comrades, because we love you and we appreciate you, and you're awesome. Shout out to our friends all over, and you know who you are. We appreciate you. So hang in there, and we will catch you on the flip side.